It's crazy. And some things you gotta do, and the things that I think are unnecessary are a little frustrating. Gotta count your blessings, I guess. Your family's okay? Yeah, sure. But school's meeting, everything's regular.
Probably up.
So far, so good. My oldest is in Israel. For me, the most frustrating thing is that I can't see him. I want to go visit him. No, they won't let me in. I'd quarantine. That's what it took. But they won't let tourists in unless you have a first-degree relative that's a citizen. There was actually a heartbreaking article. Just a tour guide.
We are live now.
Back to a conversation I had literally 3 years ago, right before your father. It's like different. I was like, that was only 3 years ago. Because I said, oh, I remember you commented on this article. Let me see what I wrote this article.
Good.
Chazan, have you ever sung here in the synagogue before? Who is it? It's Rabbi Solovechik. Yes.
I didn't know you were here.
We'll have to give him a test, see what he does with the Sephardic tunes. We'll have to see what he does with the Sephardic tunes. Have you sung here before, Chazan? You have?
I've sung here, first of all, in Shloshim Safra.
Yeah.
And the members of the New York Philharmonic.
Oh, terrific. Terrific. Right here.
Right here.
Terrific.
I didn't know about that. Oh, yeah. Then I sang once more. I think it was.
Terrific.
As they say in Yiddish. Of music. Yeah. Of music. Much better anyway.
Is it? Why?
I don't think he's with the certificate.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't know how it's going to work. No, basically, it's all very optimistic.
Do they have the funding for it? Wow, the main show.
Every floor?
Wow. I had no idea. That's your dad. I had no idea.
Then, I haven't seen you in a long time. What, 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
Did you make up that something?
He's on way back. They have the same birthday.
Ira. His wedding. Seattle. And he's still talking to me.
Did you sing in the Sephardic tongues as well?
But you know, I talk to you, Rabbi, often. Once.
No.
Yeah. Yes? They don't say that?
I quote you all.
That's so funny. That's hysterical.
So
See this beautiful tongue? I'm very excited about this beautiful tongue.
Rabbi is
I mean, the Beis Medrash exists. They daven there and so forth. But I don't know if it's a functional institution. But it's still there. They have shacharis.
I once flew there to see the dinner.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that was his policy. Yeah. Did you? That's hysterical. Goes, exactly. That's funny. I love that.
Wow! Okay, how are you?
This could be maybe great.
No, I know. Maybe it's even
Where do you guys go? Oh, cool. Any good video?
No, actually, first time.
Which one?
Right now as we speak, or
Bigger ones than that. Esports.
can you take me somewhere? How about issue? I don't know if they'll let me in, but I'll carry shit out. It's been done. It's been done. So you're saying you can't cut? What's the hand? Permission to go for negative.
Makes you feel comfortable, right? What's that? Shadow. Was that Rocky? He was there.
Rocky 4.
Was it okay? Not really.
Article life.
It's great that you guys remember this one? Something fun? You're lucky. I like it.
What are the grades? No, I'm good when I'm we have time.
Hi, Rabbi.
How you guys doing?
Nice to
What's going on? That's what I'm going to do. It's fine, it's just the team. London also. We're fine.
You throw a vehicle.
It's all fun.
So I remember your grandmother used to read to your grandmother in English. Remember that?
الو الو كتسمعني 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 كتسمعني
Well, it's the only thing, well, we're going to have to get you a copy.
لا هو
What?
كتسمعني دابا
You don't want a copy of it? Okay. So I read it and it's your
قلب عليها نقول قلب عليها نقول له
You don't need a diet. It's a high protein, low carb diet. Hello. Thanks so much for
You're welcome.
So if I speak from the top, will be okay? Hearing me? Yeah, I think I went down and looked at the college it's going to be from up there, I think. Okay. Rachel. They want us to put on here,
I'm supposed to go over there, I think.
Just make sure the camera can see. It's Ashkenazi stuff anyways. It's all the same. That's mine, yeah. It's my son's, but it's ours. It's great. Ready to go? Good afternoon, all, and I'm Rabbi Solovechik, and I want to welcome all those who are here and all those watching online to a very special occasion, the dedication of Sefer Torah that was written in honor and in memory of Ira Lippman and Barbara Lippman, Yitzchak ben Mati Zichrono Livracha, and Chaya Simcha Rochel As Avraham Zichrona Livracha. On behalf of Congregation Shared Israel, the Spanish and Portuguese congregation, I want to stress what an honor it is that the Lippman family, Ira and Barbara's children and grandchildren, have chosen not only to write this Torah in their memory, but to have the Torah reside here with us. It's a tribute to the connection that the Lippmans had to our congregation, as well as, I'll add, given Ira's love for American history and his strong faith in the miracle that is the story of America. It's particularly fitting that this congregation, which is so bound up with the story of America and the story of the Jews in America, should have the Lippman Torah residing with us. And just as a personal note, I'll speak about this in my brief remarks. Given my own bond with Ira, a man that I would talk to several times a week and would go out to eat with, I think, every other week. My very time, my very thinking about history, my very thinking about this country has not been the same ever since we lost him. And it's therefore personally such a privilege for me to host this event and to welcome all of you to it. We're going to begin with the seal of the Sefer Torah itself, with the filling in of the final letters. Rabbi Spiro will be filling in the letters on behalf of various family members. I just want to stress again our profound gratitude to all of to the children and grandchildren of Ira and Barbara, Mr. and Mrs. Gustav K. Lippman, and Adam and Clara, Mr. and Mrs. Joshua S. Lippman and Allegra, and Mr. and Mrs. M. Benjamin Lippman, Victoria and Alana. On behalf of those family members and other friends of the Lippman family, Rabbi Spiro will fill in the final letters of the Torah. And I'll say their names one by one, and Rabbi Spiro will fill in the letters. And then we'll have some remarks as the letters dry, and then bring the Torah up into our magnificent Heichal, into our ark. Rabbi Spiro, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. So first to fill in a letter on behalf of Avi Kunik. Sorry? Next letter? Okay. Next letter on behalf of Joel Wallace.
Letter will be Zion. Okay, Mazon Bracha.
Next letter on behalf of Barry Ackerman. Next, Jonathan Muller.
Yeah. Okay, Nazam brother.
Next letter is filled in on behalf of Jacob Gold and family. And then next, Esther Alma, Martha Lippman, Kajmala. Next is Mayor Solovechik. Next, we have letters filled in on behalf of Ben Littman, as well as, in Seattle, Ilana Littman, Victoria Littman, and Leah Littman. Whatever. Four letters.
Three, right?
Now we fill in three letters on behalf of Josh Lippman, Joanna Lippman, and Alana Lippman in Memphis. Now we'll have Gus come up along with Karen, Adam, and Clara.
bracha.
Now, Jacob Alma. And now, Rabbi and Mrs. Solovechik. We're honored to welcome Rabbi Ralph and Mrs. Solovechik to the congregation. It's wonderful to welcome you back here.
I don't know.
Yeah, come stand over here.
Fine, close the guitar is fine. Whatever is easier for him.
What letter do you want to do
Chaf. Chaf.
Just so as a mark before it's part of the celebration.
Maybe keep it, maybe I like it just Leah. I like it just Leah.
So you are, delightful. Very tribute to
Awesome bracha.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll now finish the Torah, and as the ink dries, we'll have some brief words of memory and also of celebration of this moment. I'll deliver some words, and then we'll hear from Gus, and then from Ben, and then from Rabbi Roth, and then memorial prayers from Chazan. Just let Rabbi Spirit finish the Torah. Sorry.
Okay. I'm done.
That's it. As I prepared for this day, my mind went back to several years ago, right around this time, where I went for one of my lunches every 2 weeks with my dear friend Ira Littman at his special table in the corner of the kosher branch of Russ and Daughters at the Jewish Museum. On the one hand, every lunch went the same way. I would come in, I would always get what was called schmaltz and a shot, which was a schmaltz herring and a shot of vodka. He would always be very nice to the waiters, and would tip them even though that wasn't part of the policy, and would ask, what do you think I should get? And he'd get something very healthy, salad, with fish, etc. We'd have a very healthy meal until the end. And then he would usually give in and have the special signature challah ice cream of Russ and Daughters. Not always went the same way. But our conversations were always different. But they always had something to do, in some way, with Judaism and with America. And what Ira wanted to talk to me that day was about a peace of mind that he had seen. Something that I wrote in advance of the high holidays, when we focus both on mortality as well as eternity. And I noted in this piece that he had seen that there were 3 epitaphs that 3 different American founders wrote for themselves, preparing for when they would no longer be in this world. There was Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the following for his grave in Monticello. He wrote, "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. If you come to his grave, you have no idea that he was President of the United States, and the man who brought about the Louisiana Purchase." Jefferson is suggesting that our legacy is not in the power we wield, but in how we impact and inspire others. This, of course, is a profoundly Jewish idea, found first and foremost in Judaism's focus, especially on Rosh Hashanah, on Zikaron, memory, and our emphasis on the way we all remember. That's Thomas Jefferson. And we have John Adams. John Adams composed nothing for himself as an epitaph. Instead, he wrote an inscription for his family burial ground, and he placed this at the tomb of his ancestor, and he wrote, "This stone and several others have been placed in this yard by a great-great-grandson from a veneration of the piety, humility, simplicity, prudence, frugality, industry, and perseverance of his ancestors, in hopes of recommending an affirmation of their virtues to their posterity." Or as the historian David McCullough put it, Adams had chosen to say nothing of his own attainments, but rather to place himself as part of a continuum. And that too we Jews do. When we place stones on the gravestones of those we loved, it reflects our commitments to build on the sacrifices of those who have come before, to see them as our foundation in the lives that we live. But then I mentioned something from Benjamin Franklin, and it was that it excited my dear friend Ira. Benjamin Franklin, for most of his life, was not that devout. But at the age of 22, he had composed a witty proposal for his gravestone, which went something like this. He would read, "The body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the cover of a book, its contents torn out, stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here. But," Franklin continued in his epitaph, "but the work shall not be wholly lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author." And the author is capitalized. That's God, of course. And it's a statement of the biblical belief in resurrection. And this, of course, was a central Jewish belief all throughout our prayer texts. Ira loved it. He had never seen that before. And it's rare that I could show Ira something from American history that he had not seen. And he wanted to know where it was from, where it first printed. And as I recall, I didn't know. Next week, a package was dropped off at my house. Ira had not only found the original book in which that epitaph of Franklin appeared, but he had, as it were, republished it. He had the book reprinted for me. So I had myself, from a man who loved books, a quote about books and about immortality, given to me, as it were, in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author. And thinking it over now, it struck me that these 3 versions of immortality by these 3 founders embodied 3 different ways in which Ira lived his life. On the one hand, in the face of all of his extraordinary success, Ira used that success, first and foremost, to inspire others, to be a beacon to others. Second, Ira, like John Adams, saw himself as part of a continuum. And as I mentioned at the burial of his beloved Barbara, if there is anyone who truly embodied the parallel to the partnership that was John and Abigail Adams, it was the way Ira and Barbara lived their entire lives together. Different people engaged in different endeavors, and yet the successes of each accrued to the other. Or as Rabbi Akiva famously said about his wife, Shali v'shalachem shalom. All that I have achieved, all that you have achieved through me is hers. And the continuity that Adam spoke about is also how Ira lived his life. Indeed, the very initiation of writing Torah scrolls came about because Ira wished to remember his parents and to give Torah scrolls in their memory, just as Adam's placed a stone to show himself as part of a continuum. Ira created Torah scrolls all over the country in order to show himself as part of a continuum, and thereby, in Adam's words, recommend the virtues and faith of the past to his own posterity. And in creating these Torahs, he, of course, testified to the saying from Franklin that he had so loved. Because ultimately, we Jews are, as it were, like Franklin, who referred to himself as a printer and a bookmaker. We are the people of the book. This is our book. And so in remembering the past and inspiring others, Ira became, as it were, a bookmaker in partnership with Holy Spirit here. He created book after book, sefer after sefer, scroll after scroll, a testament to the way he lived his life, a testament to his partnership with his wife, a testament to the family he built, a testament to the continuity that he so successfully sought. And so now, we do the same with our Torah scroll. And we remember Ira and Barbara, and we remember the life they built together, and we remember all that they stood for. And here at this very moment, all that we do right now, we bring to life the sayings of those three founders. Appropriately so, given how much Ira loved the founding and American history. In the spirit of Jefferson's epitaph, we remember Ira for all that he did, and we remember Barbara for all that she did, and remember the way they lived their lives. In the spirit of Adam's epitaph, we have gathered online and in person Ira's and Barbara's beloved family, and highlighted how Ira himself saw himself as part of continuity. Barbara became the matriarch of the family that created this continuity, and now the continuity lives before us. And of course, we mark the occasion in the spirit of all that Benjamin Franklin said. We created a new book in memory of Ira and Barbara. The prophesied age in which all that we have loved and lost, all whom we have loved and lost, will be resurrected and presented to us in a new and improved edition by the author. That age is not yet upon us, but nevertheless, we can say in Benjamin Franklin's words, thinking of Ira and Barbara, and looking at the Torah, that, quote, the work shall not be wholly lost. And that here, as we have this Torah written in their memory, Torah that will be read from the oldest congregation in America, attesting to Jewish faith in America. Speaking personally, I know that when I stand there and touch the Torah, touch this book, then Ira and Barbara will live again. And we will bear them with us through this book. And remember, in the years to come, their lives, their faith, and their love. Yes.
Those are beautiful remarks, and my parents would have very much enjoyed hearing that. It would have been very familiar because the joy that he had with those meals, those discussions, those moments of learning were things that he would share and want us to be aware of how much joy he had. So good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today for the dedication of this Sefer Torah given to the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue in memory of my parents, Ira and Barbara Lippman, of blessed memory. Today marks my father's second yahrzeit. We would like to thank Rabbi Binyamin Spiro of Baltimore, who has been the scribe for all 29 Torahs given over the years. He is meticulous and his work is spectacular. We would also want to thank Rabbi Saul Roth, Rebbitzin, Rabbi Emeritus of Fifth Avenue Synagogue, and Cantor Joseph Molovani of Fifth Avenue Synagogue. They participated in the 28 Sefer Torahs given by my father in memory of his parents. Their insight and friendship were precious to Ira and Barbara Lippman and the entire Lippman family. We are thankful to be here in this esteemed synagogue. The rich history of the Jewish community in America may have begun in this very community in the 17th century New Amsterdam, which we now call New York. They were not seeing themselves as trailblazers, but more likely were looking for a safe place to pray and build a Jewish community in what was then considered the New World. We would like to thank Rabbi Solovechik. My father enjoyed learning with you. Your discussions included the important aspects of Jewish law and ethics into the fabric of this great country, the United States of America. My father was delighted to learn of the reverence the founding fathers held for our history, laws, and ethics. All of you knew my father and what a wonderful patriot he was and how much joy these facts and this narrative meant to him. Friends and family, many of you attended my father's funeral in September 2019 and my mother's funeral in March of 2020. We miss them terribly. I miss them terribly. And while I will not eulogize my parents again for you today, even so, I want you to know that my father grew to be more religious and Shomer Shabbos as he grew older. Ira Lippman embraced Torah and learned with these rabbis and others with great zeal and curiosity. My mother chose to be Jewish and was not only a perfect mother to me and my brothers, but a perfect Jewish mother. With my father, she created a loving Jewish home for my brothers and me. We only wish that the same loving environment for all of the children of Israel. At sad occasions, it is often said, may we see each other at Simchas only. My late father, I live in blessed memory, when he spoke of the gift of Sacred Torah, he said that it helped him take the sting out of St. Kaddish at the yard site of his parents. He took a moment where he felt pain and managed to turn the painful experience for him into moments of joy, hope, and optimism with the gift of a new Torah for others and the community. My brothers and I, as well as our families, were blessed to learn lessons such as this from our parents. For all of us, these last few years have been difficult. Our intent was to dedicate this Torah last year. A year ago, when we postponed to today, we expected to have the synagogue filled with congregants, friends, and family. Yet with a pernicious new variant of the virus spreading again, we first limited this event to family and a few friends only. And as late as last week, we then considered postponing the event again to a later date after my brother Josh and his family and Benjamin's family would no longer be able to safely attend. Many of you knew that Ira Lippman of blessed memory, was concerned about germs and pandemics years before he died, years before we all experienced these last few years of the pandemic. At Guardsmark, we prepared the company and our clients for SARS and MERS. He learned the risks of a pandemic and began greeting people with his elbow and not a shake of his hand. And yet he went to work every day and went to shul every Shabbos and holiday, understanding that we all must manage risk. In fact, I would say that the best time to bring the light of a new Torah to a community would be in dark and difficult times. Thus, we knew that this synagogue needed to enjoy this Torah now and as we go into the new year. We cannot wait for things to be perfect, but only try to make them more perfect. We hope to see your congregation enjoying this Torah for years to come.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for everyone that is joining us on the live stream today from many different time zones. I first want to thank Rabbi Spiro, Rabbi Benjamin Spiro, Benjamin Spiro, for coming from Baltimore, for making the trip here. As my brother Gus mentioned, Rabbi Spiro has been involved in all of the family Torah dedications as our sofer, and we greatly appreciate everything that he has done. One thing to mention as well is that Rabbi Spiro also learned with my father of blessed memory. I believe they learned Pirkei Avos at one point, and I know that he very much enjoyed the learning and the relationship and the companionship that you both had. I also want to recognize Rabbi Saul Roth, the Rabbi Emeritus of Fifth Avenue Synagogue, who has also been a part of every single Torah dedication of the family, and perhaps one of the architects of helping the family with the value of Torah and with bringing about such a wonderful gift to help bring to the Jewish communities. Thank you for being here today. Cantor Malavani also has been a part of all of the Torah dedications as well, and lends his beautiful voice to uplifting each and every event. And many of these have been, as we all know, have been in different time zones, different cities, and you've been able to be there. So we really appreciate you being here today as well. And of course, Rabbi Solovechik. I can always remember the call that I got some years ago from my father, excited from one of the lunches that he had with you at I think Russ and Daughters, and talking about the fact that we share very similar birthdays and our love of sports and our love of learning and many things, and certainly that excitement. And I'm so glad that you had that relationship with my father and mother, a blessed memory. And thank you for your beautiful words today. I'm going to try to be brief, and also I just want to thank everyone for being here. As my brother Gus said, my parents really lived a life of Torah values. They instilled so many wonderful ethical traits to us, and many things like integrity and really striving to be a better person in everything that we do. And I just wanted to say that one of the attributes of my father, and this being his foresight, as has been mentioned, was this idea of intentionality, idea of kavana, of concentration. So as Gus mentioned, my father and mother became, more observant, and certainly after my mom's stroke, my father became more observant and really grew tremendously in his Torah learning. I know Rabbi Roth, being here today, would learn many Shabbat afternoons with my father for many years, and would always, my father, blessed memory, would always enjoy those times. And many different rabbis that impacted him, throughout his life. But he had this idea of kavana, concentration, and it's something that where when he would decide to take on something, he was going to take it on, and he was going to do it with everything he had. He was a man of passion, and it's a trait that I think about these days. Is we are in the month of Elul, the Hebrew month of Elul. We're about with Rosh Hashanah coming in just a couple of weeks. He was a man of passion. He wanted to, when he would say his tefillah, when he would do that, he would say it with such great passion. He would make sure to say every word, and he was probably the last to finish, but he knew that he wanted it to matter. And that's the way he would do it even on Shabbos. He would come home from the synagogue, he would rush home to my mother, and what would he do before lunch? He would want to learn. He would want to open up a chumash. He would want to learn about the Torah portion. He would want to read the commentary. And he would want to read it a couple times, multiple times, just so that he could take all of that in. And it's that kavana, it's that concentration that was so intense that I admired so much. And I know he would be so proud of the Torah and all the different institutions, and particularly this institution, to be receiving the Sacred Torah. I would also just want to say too that my mother of blessed memory also was someone of great faith, great emunah, and she was someone that would always take the last words of her tefillah, and she would want to make sure, she would plead and she would seek and she would ask that Hashem would accept the words of her mouth and the thoughts that she had, and that she could connect to her Maker. So on this day, where my brother Gus said, we would sure love to have more and more people, and please God, at some point we can have something more, a much larger event, and hopefully this time of challenge that we're all facing in the world will soon come to an end, and we only see good things in the weeks, months, and years ahead. Amen.
It is important to note that the divine response to those who observe his commandments, his mitzvos, is not in the Torah called a reward, but a blessing. Hinei anochi nosein lachem, nosein lifnechem, baracha. Behold, I present you with this, on this day, with a blessing. What is the content of the blessing? Asher tishmeru es mitzvos Hashem ve'elokeichem. You are required to observe the precepts and the commandments of the Lord your God, and then you will be entitled to a blessing. The Torah is not that the response, that the divine response is a reward. That is not the Jewish point of view. It is rather, in the Hebrew language, a reward is called schar, not bracha. In Hebrew, it means schar means a reward, while bracha is a blessing. It is interesting to note that in the 13 principles of faith of the Rambam, one of these principles, the 11th, is generally identified as the principle of reward and punishment. The truth of the matter is that the Rambam did not use the word reward. He used the word not schar, but gomel tov. He did good things for those who did that which he required. He does, and the phrase is properly interpreted as a bracha, a blessing, and not a reward. Why is this the case? The explanation is found in the Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avos. Al tiyu ka'avodim hamishamshin esarav al manas lekabel paras. Never be like a servant who served his master only for the sake of a reward. This is a fundamental principle in the Torah. We do not have a contract with God. He is not a matter. It is not a matter of if you give, you get, and if you don't give, you don't get. The Jew observes his commandments as a matter of commitment. This is part of the idea of the bris. The bris means that the Jew is required in his fulfillment of the precepts of Torah to do it exclusively out of commitment. He does the right thing as far as God is concerned. This was a fundamental principle in the lives of Ira and Barbara, who did many good things. They were sources of bracha for individuals and the community. And when I speak of the community, I mean both the Jewish community and the American community. These deeds were inspired by his commitments to principles of Torah and principles of democracy. This was manifested in a religious context by the way of expressing and manifesting his conduct, which could well be regarded as piety. What do we mean by piety? Genuine piety. Piety can be defined as consistency in a religious context. It occurs when action coincides with motivation. The identical act may be motivated by different considerations. An individual comes to the synagogue on a Saturday, ostensibly in order to pray. But in truth, a series of motives are the motivators, often prompt him to come to shul. He wants someone to hear the sermon. someone to hear the chanting of the service, someone to enjoy the gastronomic pleasures of the Kiddush, and the social gratification that derives from association with friends. A pious individual is sincere. He comes to pray, to seek an encounter with God. Ira prayed in the spirit of piety, using the English language, but it didn't matter, because in the spirit of piety he was talking to God. That is far more important, halachically speaking. He was preoccupied with tefillin. I was present on a number of occasions when he tried to persuade some of his friends, important people as well, to put on tefillin. He was anxious about his religious performances. He wanted to know whether his fulfillment of halakhic precepts was satisfactory to God. He asked me, "Is the Lord satisfied with my performance?" Many times. The interesting thing is that he called God the Lord, which is not a tendency or a practice of the Jewish people. So because of that, because of his genuine piety, not because he came to synagogue so often, he actually made progress in religious conduct. Because of his piety and religious sincerity, I regarded him as one of the genuinely religious people in the synagogue. The sincerity of commitment was impressive. This was exemplified in his annual contribution, as was already noted, of a new Sefer Torah in memory of his father and mother on the occasion of the Yersites. And in the back of this program that you got today, you will see a list of all of the synagogues that to which he made the contribution of the Torah. He would charter an airplane to ferry members of his family and those close to him to join him in the commemorations. I participated in approximately 24 or 25 of those dedications. His purpose was to strengthen Jewish life, and especially on the campus. His preference was to make an impact on the younger generation. So it was many universities that received the great gift of the Torah. He also was committed to strengthening democracy. He was passionate about his support of the School of Journalism at Columbia University, and was particularly devoted to research and publication of volumes focusing on foreign affairs and their implication for American life and the State of Israel. Very impressive was the room in his apartment in which portraits of presidents of the United States whom he admired and whom he considered great were adorning the walls. His commitments to Judaism and democracy demonstrated in concrete acts were dramatically demonstrated. Barbara Woods too was inspiring in her commitments. Another sign of commitment is courage, of which there are two varieties: the heroism on the battlefield and the heroism of individuals who are immobilized and speechless and who are able to express themselves by way of physical responses. The latter was the heroism of Barbara. In her early life, she was creative and able to enrich the life of her community. She wrote poetry. She created a school for young children. When she lost vital faculties to allow her to continue with the pattern of her life, I visited her frequently. On Saturday afternoons, I would spend about 20 minutes with her before Ira and I retired to the library for a study of Torah. A warm smile expressing appreciation frequently appeared on her lips. Barbara and Ira were two extraordinary individuals. They were paradigms. They were models. They were sources of inspiration. Zichronam Baruch. Their memory will be a blessing.
Amen.
Just drying the letters, and after the letters are perfectly dry, then Chazan Malavani will lead us in the Hachnasa, the escorting of the Torah into the Ark, followed by the memorial prayer.
Sylvia, page 3. Shir Elamah שמים וארץ. אל ייתן אל אמות רגליך, אל ינום משומריך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. יאמר השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה. אדוני שומרך, ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ויד העולם. ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, קום אדוני, ויפוץ אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך. כי מציון תצא תורה. עבור גודל אלוהינו, ותנו כבוד לתורה. ברוך שנתן תורה. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. עץ חיים דמך חזיקים בה, ותומכיה מיושע. אורך ימים בימינה, בשמאלה אושר וכבוד. אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיר תורה וידיר. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, הוא יברך את בני משפחת ליפמן בעבור שנשם ליבם ונדבה רוחם לתת ספר תורה לקהילה הקדושה. Eile Malei Rachamim, Shocheine Bameromim, Amtzein Elcha Nechona, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים לנשמת רבי יצחק בן מטיס וחיה שמחה רחל בת אברהם שיהלכו לעולמם בעבור שבניהם וכל משפחתם מתפללים ביד אזכרות נשמותיהם בגן יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים וייצרו מצורת החיים נשמותיהם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם יהללו את שם אדוני כי נשגב שמו לבדו הודו על ארץ ושמיים וירם קרן נקי כפיים ובלבב אשר לא נשא לשווא נפשי ולא נשבע למרמה יישא ורחם את אדוני וצדקה מאלוהי ישור זה דור דורשיו מבקשי פניך יעקב סיירות שערים לשכם וינשאו פתחי עולם ויבוא מלך הכבוד מזמר הכבוד אדוני זוז וגיבור אדוני גיבור מלחמה סיוף שערים אשריכם וסיוף פתחי עולם ויבוא מלך הכבוד מיוזמך הכבוד אדוני צבאות ומלך הכבוד סלע ובנכו יאמר שוב אדוני יצחיימי למה חזיקים בה ותומכיה מיושר דרכיה וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשוב חדש
All are invited to collation, which will be on the portico through this door, and there will be a mincha outside at 6:30 in the tent over there. Outside. Did you want to do mincha now then? Do you want to do mincha now then? Sure. Would you rather do it? Yeah. Sure. We have only Sephardic sitters here. That's okay with you. Do you want to leave them? Or do you want me to?
اللي يحدث فيديو عن نفسه.
Is Jonathan here?
For you, Rabbi.
We do it right now. Jonathan?
Did you record the whole thing?
Jonathan? Jonathan here? Jonathan?